Hey, I'm Darcy D, your virtual voice coach. We are back with part 2 of an ongoing topic of interest. The indie artist do's and don'ts, real world insight on navigating the independent music world to garner real world results. Joining me again today is Chris Gonda, founder of V13 Media Group and host of the HeartDea13r Podcast. If you haven't checked that out yet, you must. It's a must. Put that on your podcast list. We've already received some questions for today's episode, and if there are any more, please just drop them in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to them. I do know we have a lot to cover, so I would like to formally welcome you, Chris, back to the webinar series that you've created.
Hey, it was nice to be like a part of part 1, and then to have the desire for you to have me back or for the crowd to do so. That's it's flattering. I'm happy to be here, and all I want to do is help and share information where possible. So let's do that.
Awesome. So, okay, so we had a few questions. We had, and the people that asked them are actually, well, Chad is on board with us today. Do you want to?
Yes.
Do you want to begin there?
Sure. I mean, I think that Sterling's here too, and he also had a couple of really good questions. I can't tackle all of them, and ultimately, you know, if it makes sense, we can do more recordings down the road. But the two that really piqued my interest the most coming out of our last chat were one each. So Sterling was asking about social media and you know, is it something that emerging artists should use? And then Chad was asking about thoughts on releasing singles and doing that versus putting together a small EP or an album. I would love to talk about those two topics. Why don't we just start at the top, which is social media, and then go from there? Sounds good?
Yeah, sounds great.
So social media, I'm by no means an expert. I do not have millions of followers, let alone tens of thousands of followers, but I've talked to a lot of people that have those numbers, and I've seen stuff firsthand over the years. So going back a little bit, I mentioned in the last podcast, I've been running V13 Media for 20 years and running lots of websites for just as long. What I saw and realized over the years was you can't think of one ecosystem as a funnel back to another necessarily anymore. So I used to post an article and then post that article, you know, share that link out on Facebook and everywhere else, hoping to drive traffic back to the website because I wanted to have everyone there and monetize the website. That's not how things can be viewed anymore. Do you want to cross things over, cross-pollinate? Absolutely, but each ecosystem has its own set of tools, its own set of users, and they all interact with those different tools and different social media platforms differently. So you have to focus on each one. That doesn't mean you have to use them all. It comes down to what you enjoy, the type of content you have. I'll use my HeartDea13r podcast as an example. So I have been off social media for a very long time for different reasons. And I realized that with the podcast, I had to get back on. It was really important to do. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, X, YouTube, and one other one, which is eluding me right now. Where I've seen the most growth so far is Instagram. Where I've seen the least growth so far is TikTok, but both of them are video related. And what I've had to do is kind of get to know each platform and start to use each platform. Where you go, I guess, is where the users are going to show up. So where I'm putting more energy now is Instagram because I'm seeing the most growth there. I literally started at 0. I have about 179 followers now. But what's amazing is if you put the time and effort into the content and into the plan, the brand, the strategy, you can have huge impact. So I've only been doing this for a few months, but I've now just hit 75,000 views of the content on Instagram in the last 30 days. And that's organic. You see a lot of accounts where they have 1 million followers, but they're getting 2,000-3,000 views on plays. What does that mean? Well, it's very likely that the content isn't compelling or there's nothing cohesive to it. Or maybe that person doesn't have organic followers. Maybe they're bots, maybe they're, you know, paid for followers. So I'm just setting this up to tie to the kind of go into the conversation about social media. Does an artist need to have it? Absolutely. It's so important. Even if you use social media in just an outwards mechanism where you're not on there consuming content, you're not interacting, it's so important to do because you want to put your brand out there. You want to have the visibility as much as possible. And it's going to happen organically if you put in the time and effort. I was actually having this conversation this morning with my girlfriend. It's the same idea as going door to door with flyers. If back in the day you're trying to sell your business, you're going door to door, you're flyering windshields of cars, you're putting stuff on, people's front doorknobs, trying to get your stuff out there. This is the same idea, but it's on the web and it allows you to do it globally, instantly, and kind of all over the place. I would love, Sterling, if you had more specific questions about social media, things that you want to know about what to do, the do's, the don'ts. I know that you asked, that you said that you really don't want to do the trending stuff, and that's okay. I think that the most important thing to do is what's authentically you. So we're working with artists now. It's really hard to develop content and constantly be thinking about what are you going to do, what are you going to share, how are you going to share it. It's a lot easier if you're just pulling from something that you're naturally doing within your life anyways. So, I mean, I don't want to chase trends. I don't think that all that stuff is important, but let's say you're a musician and you're a guitarist, and for some reason you're super into strings. Strings are your life and you love playing with strings. You've tried them all. Maybe the music is what you're trying to get the world to hear, but maybe a segment you're doing is on the actual guitar strings. You start to talk about, the gauge, the brands, and you do little snippets and clips like that. That's a type of organic content that's authentically yours because you're interested in it, that people are going to latch onto and then discover the rest of your ecosystem, or the rest of your music and content that way. I do the same thing with interviews on our website. Artists get very sick of talking about their latest album and the tour they're going on and what it's like to have recorded this and be done. So we have kind of like questionnaires all over the place that are like tattoos and weed and booze and wrestling and skateboarding and parenting and Bitcoin, because everyone's got sub hobbies and they'll talk about those things. They'll enjoy talking about those things. They open up. You get their personality, and then people get more curious about the music that they're talking about or the music that they're creating. Gaining an audience. I think the best way to do it is organically. I don't think that you should be paying for things. I think that you just keep putting out the content, and it's that cliche. If you build it, they will come. I'm seeing that now. I started with 0. I probably had about 30 to 100 friends and people within the industry that I followed, some of which followed me back. And now, because I'm consistently putting out 2 to 3 reels a day, or 2 to 3 shorts a day, the videos, I'm starting to see people start to follow from videos, from other accounts. Someone followed you from your story, people that I don't know. It just happens. It takes time. There's no easy formula other than being consistent and keeping going. I don't want to keep talking at everyone, Darcy, and I can say some more, but how are we doing?
We're doing good. And, I want to just sort of point out something. When you opened up, you talked about it's really something you need to do. You can find your platform, but it's something that you need to do. I remember when I was, knee deep or neck deep in artist development, I had an artist that was, right down in Nashville, sitting at the table ready to sign the contract. And the big cheese at the label came in and said, we love you. We love your music. It's really good. You just don't have enough followers online. Mm-hmm. And so they said to her, if you build up your following, and then when she asked how many followers they wanted, they said 100,000. 100,000 followers. And I think at the time she had, maybe 3,000 or something. And she actually put in the work and she went to the UK and worked with a team of people. This was probably about 10 years ago. And she busted her butt putting all this content together and started to raise the bar. And by the time she got back to the label, they had already signed someone else like her. So, when you talk about one of the necessities, especially in the world of music today, this is one of them. Like it or not, and I understand what Sterling is saying, not wanting to follow the trends. That's fine. Don't follow the trend, but be as real and as authentic as possible, like you were saying. And
Yeah.
you'll find things about your tribe that are similar, not just your music, right? And then you'll have more areas of interest that you can cover topically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's work. It's a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of work, which is why I do think it's important to have a team or have people within your group that help. That's one of the things that our company does, is it basically strives to be a team for the artists so that they can offload work and not worry about certain things, so they can focus on their craft. Going back to the podcast, so I'm not sitting here with my camera recording a bunch of stuff that I have to think about and script. I'm leveraging the podcast itself. I'm leveraging the incredible conversations and the wise words and wisdom that I'm getting from my guests to create my social media content. I'm then leveraging technology, in this case, Riverside, which is a fantastic platform.
I'm going to have to look at that one.
It's so good, honestly, for recording, live streaming, everything. There's AI tools built in, so I can set up a custom brand. When you go to my Instagram, you can see the brand. It's very 80s retro, blue and pink. It's supposed to represent deoxygenated and oxygenated blood. But with one click to all of those shorts, I could just hit the brand. Then I could export those videos and have this amazing catalog of different videos, which the AI knows how to title and provide a little description to. And then I work with my partner to develop a release schedule, and I'll sit down for a couple hours and then just schedule 2 to 3 posts a day for a week or two in advance. And then I don't have to worry about it. And then you can use other tools. I can't remember the name of the program right now. My business partner, Lance, just moved us to a new social media platform that is not expensive. I think it's 20 or 30 bucks a month. And it allows us to schedule a post across multiple networks at the same time. So I am posting these reels to...
It's not HubSpot or something like that's new?
Oh, I can always like comment on the video later with the name of it, because it's really cool. But in one post, it allows me to take the description, the video file, the URLs, the people that I want to tag, and then just with a little drop-down menu, go to YouTube, X, Instagram, TikTok, etc., as many as I want, and then hit publish. And it, in the back end, just publishes it to all of those. It pre-schedules it to all of those. So you have to have authentic organic content, and then you can leverage technology in a way to make the process easier. I'm one person, and like I said, I'm putting out so much content on social media, but it's with help, and it's because I need to.
Leveraging your tools.
Exactly. So I think that that's the most important thing. And what I tell all the artists that we're working with is the same thing: is it doesn't matter what it is, and it can be as crazy as you want it to be. We have an artist in Ireland, Garrett Anthony Rice, and he always wears these really awesome flamboyant dress shirts. And I can't remember what the name was, but I said to him one day, I said, like, you should do something with your shirts, like the Silly Shirt Sunday. I don't remember what the title was, but he did it. He jumped on it, and he immediately started to see more traction because people thought that was funny, and then they're brought into his music. It's just about finding that niche, and don't compare yourself to other people. That's another huge thing, is everyone sits here and says, oh my God, I only have 200 followers. This person has 1,000. The next person has 10,000. That person has 1 million. Comparison is so bad. Only compare yourself to yourself and focus on yourself, because you never know what someone else has going on. I have seen firsthand people that have 1 million followers on Instagram who are getting, 2,000-3,000 likes on a reel. You then have to start asking yourself, how many of those followers are genuine? Then I've seen other people that have maybe 10 to 100,000 followers who are getting millions of views on the videos. Be organic, focus on the content, and everything else will work out if you take the time to strategically share it. I think that's really like the main message. So authentic content, focus on each platform. Every single platform is different. You have to understand YouTube. You have to understand Instagram. If you're going to use those platforms, it's not the same for all of them. And then just be consistent. Have a calendar and get stuff out there consistently. If you want to take it a step further, once you've done all that stuff, then you have to engage. That's where you see even more uptake. So when you start to comment, when you start to appreciate what people are sharing, when you start to, reply back, when you start to view the content of the people that are following you, all of that stuff helps the algorithm. I haven't even tried this yet, but I just had this conversation this morning. I'm not exaggerating. I said to my girlfriend, I said, if we want to sell and we need to get in front of the most people possible, and this might be like a noob thing to say, maybe this is kind of standard and all the creators are already doing this, but why wouldn't I just go to the biggest channels in the world that do similar stuff to me, so similar followers, similar creators, and then just comment and interact on their posts and be like, oh, I love what you said here. This is really smart. This really reminds me of this part of the interview I just did with this guy who was on my podcast. Maybe you're going to draw organically more people in that way by getting this loud, this large platform on someone else's channel that you can just post in front of. So that's really it. That's the game. It's not hard. It just takes, like anything in life, consistency and commitment.
And when you go to other people's platforms, it's like-minded content usually, right?
Yeah, agreed. I'm happy to talk more about socials, but I also really love this question about the releasing stuff. If you want to see me talk too much, it's about releases and the reasons why we release things. Sterling, did we answer your questions? Do you have any more about socials? I guess we should pivot over to the release stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, we could. Sterling just said he's curious about singles too. That Chad had a good question there. And he says that you put him on the right path.
Nice. Well, hopefully. The funny thing is with all content, whether it's social media or music or painting, I think we talked about this last time, it just focus on authenticity. If it's something that you love, that you enjoy, that you're doing for you, then that's the best thing in the world. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, that's how things sell. People can see through trends. People can see through shtick. They can see through things that are not genuine. That's why we have all kinds of musical trends that pop up, and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to do a grunge album this time, and then a hair metal album the next time, and then a pop punk or emo, whatever's big at the time. Just make your music. End of story.
Sure, and that'll show up in your timeline, and at first, especially if you're a young artist, you don't really know who you are. You don't know who your tribe is. You don't know. You're just doing what you love based on all the influences you've accumulated over the years, and so it's going to take you a while. But doing it regularly, daily, is going to help you find, who you are, what your tribe is, who you're relating to. Yeah. So, and then once you're established, then is it not like when you're an actor that does a series of movies and they're all sort of typecast in the same format, and then it's difficult to get out? Is it not like that when a band becomes or gains some notoriety? Mm. That they kind of have to stick within that, and if they veer too far on the next record, the fans go, oh no. So there is that, but like you said, it always comes back to being authentic.
Yeah.
And that would be the natural evolution of your music.
Mm-hmm.
In this case.
I think that goes back to the point of, we were saying be consistent and just keep going. You never know when the break will happen. I have been fed a whole bunch of videos recently of Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails in the band that he was in prior to Nine Inch Nails. I didn't even know there was a Trent Reznor prior to Nine Inch Nails because you just assume that's where things start. And he's at playing piano in the back behind a bunch of guys with amazingly ridiculous 80s haircuts. And it was nowhere near what his music is now. And I bet you he didn't think that his path was going to be that. Exactly. And then all of a sudden he got into movie soundtracks, right? Now he's scoring huge movies. Like, he did Seven, and he's done a bunch of other stuff, and he's working with Atticus Ross. And now it's continuing. Like, who knows where the path will go, but he's probably just been doing what he wants to this entire time, which was just make music, period, right. Full stop. And I bet you he changed bands along the way because he wasn't making the music that he wanted, so he changed something. That's what you have to do. And I think that leads into this concept of singles versus EPs versus albums. None of it matters unless you're making the stuff that you want. So if you genuinely have something that you've created that you love, that you just want to release, that's the first step. That doesn't mean it's going to be the best thing in the world, and you're probably going to go back to it, 10 years later and say, "Oh my God, can you believe I sang that poorly?" Or my guitar playing could have been so much better. The production could have been better. Everything can always be better. Don't let perfect be the enemy of great, or great be the enemy of good. Just release stuff that you were satisfied with. If you were genuinely satisfied with it, you've put in the time and investment, or invested the time and energy into it, and you're happy with it, then don't second guess yourself. Release it. But don't rush to release. That's like one of the number one mistakes that artists do, is they rush to release stuff. And when I say artists, I mean all creators, business, entrepreneurs, painters, whatever. Everyone's just, it's done. I want to get it out. On to the next thing. Create. Don't do that. Give it time and space to breathe. You've put in all this time, sometimes lots of money, to record and release an album. The last thing you want to do is then just put it out there and have no chance of return on investment. And it doesn't have to be a financial return. It could just be how many people see it and appreciate your art. Think of the conversation we just had about social media. Social media is about marketing. Social media is about engaging an audience. Well, the best way to engage an audience is with content. And if you don't have content, if you have to create something from scratch, that's harder. Then there's like a higher chance that it's not authentic. If you have an album, for example, and you release the album, then you have to start to ask yourself, well, what am I going to put on social media now? So I tell all of our artists, the up and coming ones, because we're not working with top level artists, that's a whole different ball game. But for all of them, the strategy should be just drip feed this stuff. Some people will say, single or waterfall release is not ideal, not the best. I don't see a better way on average for most musicians now. Because if you have 10 songs, 12 songs in an album, and you've never released an album, you could release one every 4 weeks, one a month, and literally have marketing material for an entire year. Because every month you get to talk about something new. You get to talk about the next song. And then you can do videos or like playthroughs or whatever it is for each song, and create more content in between those releases. That also gives an artist or a creator time to then create more stuff. So you have a 12-month run of releasing singles. Well, I picked up my guitar in that time and I wrote a whole other album. Now I know that I'm covered for the next 12 months in terms of marketing material and stuff to talk about on my social media, and like maybe booking some tours or whatever it is. Plus, I'm already working on that next thing that comes the next one. So similar to a business, similar to anything that requires marketing, think of that long-term schedule. What are you going to be talking about 6 to 12 months from now? If you don't have something to talk about, you're immediately going to lose engagement. It's not everyone is tool that can afford to release an album once every 12 years and somehow maintain engagement. It's not happening, especially with the volume of new and independent artists there are. That's the problem. There's just so much volume now compared to what it was. You're competing with a much bigger sea of content. And if you want to break through that, you have to be consistent. You have to be loud. You have to be smart. And you need to have a strategy. So I think when it comes back to single versus EP versus album, have a plan. If you have one song, Chad, if you have one or two songs recorded and that's it, that's fine. That changes things. But you can still apply the same methodology where you say, okay, I have two songs. I'm going to release them 6 weeks apart. I'm going to use those 6 weeks really well to talk about that song as much as possible. And then I'll have the next song to talk about afterwards. And that gives me about 3 months of stuff to talk about. And then in that 3 months time, you can also think about where are you going next with this. So the more of a buffer you build for yourself, the more you have time to keep creating and to find the new things that you want to talk about. That's just how I see it. I think it's been working really well for our artists so far. What I like to say is that each artist needs a marketable moment once a month. Marketable moment is a moment big enough to justify a press release. Not because a press release is important, because really a press release is just you putting stuff on paper and sending it into the world. Hopefully people pick it up organically and you can get some traction. But a press release is justification for, if you have a publicist, for example, that publicist to go back to the same media outlets and say, hey, it's me again. I'm talking about this same artist again, but that's because this time we've got something new. And that marketable moment, that thing that's big enough to justify a press release, can be a single, a music video, a lyric video, maybe a collaboration on someone else's track, a gig you're playing, a merch line that you're about to announce, just something that's big that you want to announce. And then what you do is, between those monthly marketable moments, you have other moments, and those moments are just different and smaller, and you try to fill up the schedule that way as much as possible. And if you have 12 singles, why wouldn't you just use each one as a monthly marketable moment? Because you have them right there. Done.
So what about, like, if you had an EP or a record, because you've curated this collection of songs, and you wanted to put it on CD Baby, and it's more cost effective to release the whole record, could you not do that and then promote each song individually?
Yes and no. First of all, I don't think that people should spend their time and energy recording something and then worry about saving $20 here and there because they can package all the songs together. It doesn't make sense, right? The math doesn't add up. If you spend $5,000 on recording, you're trying to save $200 on releasing the full album. Doesn't make sense. I mean, there you go. Less. It doesn't make sense to me. Once a song is out, once a video is out, it's really hard to get press to pay attention. So I've run sites, like I said, for 20 years. And what happened during the pandemic was that advertising for music and entertainment websites went to almost zero because there was no touring, there was no live stuff happening, budgets dried up. I literally went from tens of thousands of dollars in advertising revenue to zero overnight. That's not an exaggeration. And now we're starting to find different ways to build up that advertising revenue for the website, or not even ad revenue, just sponsored revenue, whatever it is. Because of how things have changed, so many sites have closed and publicists are having a harder and harder time finding free placement. Now websites are starting to say, well, I've been doing this for 10, 20 years and I'm doing this for free, and you, the publicists, are getting paid from the artist. Who's paying me? If you want me to run an interview, then give me something. We're getting more into sponsored or paid placement area for a lot of sites, if not most sites. We don't do that because our business model is very different. So we have paid sponsorships, but 90 to 95% of our content remains completely free and unpaid because we're being strategic about how the websites run. With that being said, it's tough to get websites to pay attention, even if you have a publicist. And that's before a song or video is out. Once a song or video is out, a website will most likely not care because they've already got a list of like 1,000 other songs and videos that are coming in the next 1 to 3 months, which is why it's so important to have a schedule or a strategy around a release and not rush to release, because once it's done, it's done. You can't take it back. You can't walk it back. There are, exceptions to every rule. I'm not making blanket statements, but generally speaking, once it's out, it's out. If you are a metalcore band and you are just starting out, and you're like, this music is the best and it's really good, think about how many other bands are metalcore bands that have really good music. Now think about all the metalcore bands that are actually on indie and major labels, your Killswitch Engages, whatever it is, that have music that is being featured on those websites. There are only so many metalcore bands that these websites and podcasters and bloggers and playlisters are going to feature. So you have to be smart about it. And if you do 12 songs over 12 months, maybe one of those 12 will hit one of those big playlists or big sites, and that will help. It takes a while. It takes a lot of effort, and it's the same as social media. We talked about this earlier. You have to be consistent. You have to constantly have a plan, constantly have a strategy, constantly release. It's the same thing with music. I've seen so many stories about, artists that put something out and this song was like 2 years old and I was basically marketing it every day for 2 years, and then it was all of a sudden something clicked at that mark and now that song got big, and then they funneled people into their group. And That's kind of like one last thing that I'd love to talk about here is just pivoting off of this to combining the idea of social media platforms and engagement areas of music, and then what artists can or maybe should do to focus on their whole ecosystem. Before I transition, though, does that make sense with the releases? Should we talk about singles, albums, EPs anymore? No more questions?
It looks like there's no more questions. It's making sense. And
Okay.
yeah, it looks like you've covered the topics. They love it.
So I'll just say one last thing. Like, nothing is finite. Things can also change. We had an artist that wanted to release an album, and I might have mentioned this in our last call, I don't remember, but she um, was really focused on releasing an album. I think she had 10 or 12 tracks. And what happened mid-campaign was that it made more sense to not do that and instead do an EP and another EP. So she had taken this album idea and said, you know what? I agree with you guys. Let's not focus on the album. Let's get this EP version out, this first one, so that we can hit certain dates and deadlines. That'll give me breathing room, and then I can go into the next EP next year. So she's getting the same result by all the songs being out, but she bought herself more time to market it, and there's less pressure and stress about getting it out. And that really helps with the overall story that she can share, because she has more content. It's spaced out a little bit, and she has other stuff between the EPs that she can talk about. So have a plan, but also know that it can change. Just be consistent and make sure that you have this future path forward with how you're releasing, what you're releasing, when you're releasing, and don't rush. I actually had a podcast, I think a week or two ago, with a gentleman from a company called Zedge. He's a musician. He's had a really cool tech career, but everything he's done in the tech world has been musical or music related. You know, he really wants to do things for artists as an artist himself. He helped to establish the Google Play ecosystem. He worked at Rhapsody back when Real Player was a big thing. And then 10 years ago built, I'm paraphrasing, I could be wrong with the dates, but about 10 years ago he built some products that Zedge bought. And now they're releasing something called Tape Deck, where they're putting more money into the pocket of creators through the Tape Deck app. Tape Deck app. So check it out. Check out Zedge. What I loved about the conversation is he said artists need to think about ARPU, average revenue per user. So you remember how earlier I said like every ecosystem is its own, and you shouldn't worry about like how am I going to get Instagram followers to funnel over here? You know, do you want to sell to them? Absolutely, but you don't want to like worry about moving them to a website or to the newsletter and then, you know, shift things around. Each ecosystem is its own. So look at Spotify, look at Facebook, look at Instagram, look at Bandcamp, whatever you have your content on, and ask yourselves or do the math on what's your average revenue per user. If you're getting, you know, 0.001 cent per user on Spotify, but you're getting $1 or 25 cents per user on Bandcamp, or maybe that's a bad example. Maybe it's 25 cents on Facebook, and on Bandcamp it's, you know, $10 because people get to choose what they want to pay for things. Then why would you focus your energy on Spotify when you know that your majority of your revenue per user is from Bandcamp? So start to look at the ecosystem in this way, where Spotify maybe isn't about the money at all. Maybe that's the marketing. Maybe that's the streaming platform that funnels people in to your community so you can turn them into hardcore fans and then sell to those guys from a platform like Bandcamp or something else. The example that he used was the video game. My goodness, I'm blanking on the name. Basically, the people that develop video games, that whole industry, they basically realized that, oh, my ARPU is going to go up if I just get people into the game. So instead of selling the app for $1.99 or $5 or whatever it is, I'm giving this thing away for free. I'm going to get mass volume into it and then engage people within the app, right? So I think the example he used was Candy Crush, that at one point globally, Candy Crush had 1 billion users, but they were only monetizing less than 10% of those. But even the less than 10%, 3%, whatever it was, of the free Candy Crush users that were doing in-app purchases, had turned into a multi-billion-dollar business because they had so many people in the ecosystem. So don't worry about, your Spotify's and where you're bringing people in. Just bring people in. And if something starts to pop off, focus on that. Figure out how to use that system more and more to bring in more and more people, but then slowly funnel those people towards the area in your ecosystem that has the highest average revenue per user. Maybe that's the live show. Maybe it's Bandcamp. Maybe it's something else like your storefront where you're selling shirts. All that matters is that you're funneling people that way, and then you're collecting as much data and information through everything else.
Right.
But that's just what I think.
That's a great story, actually.
How are we doing? You gonna kick me off yet?
No, I think we're doing good. I mean, we're getting close to the point though where we could probably, encapsulate the 2 points that you've sort of pivoted on today. And if we were to summate everything you said, obviously we talked about, being authentic as an artist and whatnot. But then when you get into, EP versus album, that kind of thing, just sum it up for us, if you will. I mean, I know it's not like, well, just do this. I mean, it's an ongoing series of concentrations.
Yeah, I think as simple as it might sound, I think everything just comes back to authenticity, consistency, and planning. I mean, if you think of parenting or the gym, you're not going to get the results you want by going haphazardly for a month and then just stopping. You have to commit to a long window, and you have to be consistent.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to fall off and have days where you stuff your face with Halloween candy, and the next day you're like, I'm too busy, I'm not going to go. But you have to just go on, keep going. So have the consistency and do the thing that feels right to you. The gym's a great example. If someone doesn't like doing weights, then that's not going to be organic to them. But that doesn't mean they're not going to be fantastic at CrossFit or Pilates or whatever they choose to do. Find what you love, pursue it wholeheartedly, and make sure that you don't stop pursuing it, because that's what it takes to get to the top. Mm-hmm. Tupac said, it's lonely at the top. The reason it's lonely at the top is because as you're climbing a mountain, it gets harder, and more people quit. More and more people fall off. More and more people do not get to the peak. So if you want to be a successful musician, if you want to be successful at anything in life, you just have to keep going no matter what. And it's easier said than done, but that's how you do it.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, the juice is worth the squeeze.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that way too. I mean, not every day is a great day in the gym. Case in point, today. I did go, but it wasn't as in depth as I normally would. So
that's such a funny way to wrap, because you and I chatted before this, and I said, "Hey, how are we looking for today? What are you doing?" And you're like, "I'm good." I said, "Oh, you're exercising, aren't you?" So yeah, I'm on the bike. I said, "Well, I'm going to the gym right now too." And I didn't have a fantastic workout, but we both showed up. We both still did it. We both put in that time. And then we both came and sat here to do this. And who knows how the rest of our day is going to go, but we're doing the things. We're showing up.
Exactly. Well, listen, this has been great. I mean, a great follow-up. And I know that there's just so many channels we can go down when it comes to these topics. I think it would be interesting to have you back again in the future when some of the people that are attending here have taken some of this wisdom you've imparted on them and moved a little bit forward, because they're probably going to experience some of the things you've been talking about, and maybe giving them some ammunition on how to keep going, right? And keep going and keep pursuing the dream. And certainly those of you watching this, if you like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe, because it's good for us. We appreciate it. But Chris, thank you so much. It's as always a pleasure, and there's a wealth of information in here that we can sort through. Much appreciated.
I'm sure there's more, and I know that your guys have more questions that are lined up, so we can always figure out how we table those. And I was just going to say quickly, like, I think there was an ISRC question. We have, if you go to the V13 Media YouTube channel, there's a wonderful woman out of Brooklyn that we've worked with many times before. Her name is Vanessa Silverman. She has a little mini series of content. They're 2 to 5 minute episodes that she talks about specific music industry do's and don'ts. The series is called DIY Mofo. And there's a second kind of season starting now. But one of the episodes from the last season does talk about ISRCs and all that fun stuff. So if you want some cursory information about things like production, recording, ISRCs, check that out because it's already there.
Awesome. I think I've seen a few of her episodes. So that's on the V13 YouTube channel?
Yeah, at V13 Media. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Excellent. All right. For those of you that joined us live, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And until next time, sing for yourself.